So today I thought I'd do buttered garlic mushrooms with tagliatelle. To start with, I've got 2 pans on the stoves, one with water, just salted water for my tagliatelle, and then this saute pan is 2 tablespoons of olive oil and 100 grams of butter. So I'm just going to melt that butter down into the olive oil. While that's melting, we've got 200 grams of chestnut mushrooms. In half, give yourself a flat surface to work with. And then we want to slice our mushrooms. We just want to slice our 200 grams of chestnut mushrooms. You can use any type of mushroom, the choice is yours. We will be using 1 teaspoon of garlic puree, and I also love to put my chopped parsley in this dish. And I've shown you before using the guillotine method. So point down, and then we're going to guillotine through our parsley. This is just a 60-gram bag of parsley from the supermarket. Now I will use about half of the parsley in the cooking of the dish, and then I will use the other half to add to, choice is yours. I like to finish my pasta off with either parmesan or grated cheese, and I will mix the parsley into my cheese to give it a nice bit of colour to finish off the dish. Now to my pan I'm going to add 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper, and then to that I'm going to add my chopped 200 grams of mushrooms. Try and spread those mushrooms out because we want to get a nice bit of colour into our mushrooms. And then while that's cooking, I'm going to cook my pasta. Now, if I was doing this as a starter, I use 1 nest per person. If I was doing it as a main meal, I would do 2 nests per person. And I've explained before that if you're cooking dried pasta, if you're going to add it to a sauce, if it says 9 minutes on the packet, I cook it for 6. I cook it for approximately 3 minutes less because I don't want that pasta overcooked and breaking down. So we will get what we call it an al dente pasta. And then to my mushrooms that are cooking down in the olive oil and the butter, I'm going to add half of my parsley. And I'm also going to add now my teaspoon of garlic puree and give that a good mix.
Is there any reason why you've used a puree rather than the whole garlic this time?
Yeah, the words lazy come to mind. The one thing I find, and I've said it before for stroke survivors, sometimes we get to that stage where we think that's a lot of chopping, and one of the negatives to using fresh garlic, because it's got a high sugar content, it does tend, if you add it too early, to burn and go bitter. But I find that if you use the puree, you can add it a little bit earlier and it won't affect and go bitter on you. Now, as I said to my class last week, when you're cooking pasta, just use salted water. All these myths about adding oil to your water to stop it sticking, ignore them. Just salted water for your pasta, and that will cook nicely. And then the last of my parsley, I'm going to add to my grated cheese and just mix that together, and that will be the topping and to finish off the dish. Now we're looking to get a nice caramelised brown colour onto our mushrooms. as I said, you can use any type of mushroom. You can use button mushrooms. You can use chestnut mushrooms. You can use shiitakes. Choice is yours.
So the mushrooms are cooking for about, what, quarter of an hour?
There or thereabouts. I just let them cook away until they've got a nice caramelised look to them. And as you're not here, let me tell you, the garlic and seasoning flavours are coming off beautifully. As you can see, the tube.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I buy the tube. I just find it easier to manage. Unlike some people, I do still find it really difficult to twist off the tops on those jars. But with these tubes, I find it's easier to be able to unscrew with one hand, and then to put the lid back on, I find I can do that just clamping the tube between my legs and screwing back on. So once our pasta is cooked, we're going to add that straight into our butter and mushrooms. Now, it's up to you. I use tongs to get my pasta out, but if you wanted to drain it off, you can. But I always like to keep a little bit of liquid in case I need to add it, just to make a little bit of a sauce. And pasta water can help make a really nice sauce. So we want a good coating of the oil and butter onto our pasta. And as we mix it, our mushrooms will integrate into the mix. Now, as I said, you can use this, if you wanted, as a starter or a main meal. And the reason I say just use one nest if you're doing it as a starter for a person, you don't want the starter to be too big. So I'm just gonna, as I said, give it a stir and incorporate those mushrooms and get that pasta covered with that lovely olive oil and butter mix. Now, if I was using this for a dinner party at home, I do tend to serve it in a bowl like this glass bowl here. So we're looking at a nice bit of tagliatelle with some nice chestnut mushrooms through the mix. And then for a main meal, I would serve on a plate. Now, as I said, this one I've done without an actual sauce, but the choice is yours. If you wanted more liquid in your pasta mix, you could take a couple of tablespoons of your pasta water and just add it to your mix to give yourself a bit of sauce. There's a little bit of garlic butter left there that I'm just going to drizzle over the top, and I would serve that and finish it off with some chopped parsley and some cheese, and exactly the same as if I was doing a starter portion, and just finishing it off with a nice bit of grated cheese and chopped parsley makes it a really, really nice dish.